Coming up, it's Roman soldiers on parade as Napoli and Roma take over the leadership of Serie. The Istanbul derby rages in Turkey. Sporting Lisbon take the trip to Benfica. It's an awkward meeting of the X. And Bayern rack up a perfect 1,000 wins in the Bundesliga. All that and more on today's Football Hipsters podcast. All right. Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters episode 2. We're back again. It's a Monday, so that's the time where we talk football from all around the world. Joining me tonight, my name is Kris, of course, the host. I'm joined by, first up, is John. Good evening to you, John.
Hi, Kris.
And I'm also joined tonight by Drew. Good evening, Drew.
Hello, John. And hi, Kris.
Let's crack on with the show, and we'll start with the mighty 90. Okay, so as you'll probably be aware with our first 2 episodes, the mighty 90 covers our hipster teams, see how they're getting on, what's been going down in what different leagues that we're following. And as soon as it's Drew's first show of the new series, I'm going to start with Drew tonight. So Drew, I'm going to bring up my stopwatch, and if you're ready, I'm going to ask for your mighty 90, beginning now.
Yeah, all right. So again, good evening, guys. So from back at the pilot, you guys remember that my hipster team of choice is Feyenoord. So at the weekend, they ran out 3-1 winners at the Hoop Stadium against AZ Alkmaar. Dirk Kuyt actually netted a hat trick, and because of that, he's now on 10 league goals along the top of the scoring charts. Current run of form, tied at the top of the table with Ajax. Last 6 matches, they've actually potted 16 out of a possible 18 points. Simple. The next 3 fixtures, they have ADO Den Haag away. They're actually they're at home to Ajax and then at home to 20. So 2 little trickier fixtures coming after what probably should be a guaranteed 3 points in the next one. Just one quick note: they brought in a Swedish international midfielder, Simon Gustafsson, in the summer just for €1 million. He's only made 4 appearances, but he already has 1 goal and 4 assists. So it'd be interesting to see if he can come in and replace the void that Jordi Classy left when he left the summer for Southampton, and a few other players that sort of made the step up from the Eredivisie to other further leagues. Not much more to talk about other than that. It's interesting to note the effect that Dirk Kuyt has had since coming back. He spent time in the Premier League, then he went to Turkey for God knows why. But at his age, still leading the league in goals, still sort of solidifying his legendary status at the club, with Yandel Tomlinson and players like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Oh, just in time there. Just in time. Fantastic. You talked about Gustafsson. Didn't he score at the weekend as well? If I'm not mistaken.
He did not. Kuyt had all 3.
Oh, did he? Where did I see? I saw. Maybe it's another league. I definitely saw a Swedish midfielder scoring this weekend. I probably got caught up in the amount of games I watch. Still, never mind. Right, so thank you very much for that update there. So let's move across to John next then, and a trip to the Bundesliga to find out how Mönchengladbach are getting on this week. Good luck cramming this into 90 seconds, John. Your mighty 90 starts now.
Oh, well, first I suppose I've really got to talk about the midweek game actually against Juventus in the Champions League, just quickly if I can get it in. I haven't had the greatest time in Europe so far due to the poor form at the start of the season, but we got a very, very honourable point away at Juve in the Champions League, which is huge for us. The best we can really hope to get out of the group is possibly third and getting into the Europa League, realistically, with the other teams that are in there. Didn't have a lot of the ball. If I recall correctly, I don't even think we had a shot on target, but we defended brilliantly, and Jan Sommer was amazing in goal, so good performance there. Sunday had a big game against Schalke, and it was brilliant. It was like watching Gladbach of last season, defending stoutly, breaking quickly up the pitch, creating chances. We went on to win the game 3-1. First goal was from a penalty, brilliant run by Korb, got taken down in the box. Stindl took the penalty, it was actually saved, but he scored from the rebound. Schalke did get a goal back just before half-time, crossing from the side, and unluckily Andreas Christensen on loan from Chelsea scored an own goal. But the one thing to note during that is that the ball fell to Max Meyer. Brilliant piece of control in the box for Schalke, I'll give him a little bit of credit. But then we had a wonder free kick from Raphael, and then a last minute goal from Korb as well to wrap up the third. So just a great performance so far. 5 wins in the league now after 5 losses, all the way up to 7th, 2 points off 5th and 4 off 3rd.
And that is your time, ever the professional. Thank you, John. Amazing you managed to cram that in. We will have some time to put more flesh on the bones of that game. I know there's a couple of things to mention later on. So
definitely.
Very good, and very much informed, would you glad it? 5 wins straight, I think it is now?
Yeah, 5 straight wins after 5 straight losses, which is a strange record to have in the Bundesliga. It is a record that's never been done by anyone else.
There you go.
Not necessarily something you want to be proud of. The 5
no,
losses
there's
anyway.
that. And all this from a coach who doesn't really want the job, apparently, if we're led to believe the truth. So, good stuff. Well, there we go. So that's how the 2 guests teams are performing. That just leaves me. So I shall pop a stopwatch on myself. So, Mighty 90 for me, and Lorient begins now. So, Lorient had quite a big weekend this weekend at Le Moustoir, their home pitch. It was the Brittany Derby against Rennes. 2 teams sort of in mixed form of late. But Les Merlus, Lorient's nickname, they came into the game sort of looking to get one up on their neighbours, and it started well. They went 1-0 up through Majid Waris's terrific piece of skill on the right hand side, putting in a low cross for Rafa Guerrero to turn the shot into the bottom right hand corner in 25 minutes. So they were 1-0 up and things were going well, but the game turned on 67 minutes in the second half. Lamine Koné was sent off for 2 bookable offences, and from the resulting free kick, Kamil Grosicki whipped in a near post goal, which was given via the goal decision system. Benjamin Lecomte was quite unlucky not to pull it back from behind the line. So it was a very clever free kick whipped in at the near post. That got the equaliser. And then Giovanni Sio was the next man to see red, also for 2 bookings. He was sent off at the 84th minute after whipping away the legs of Latoa for his second bookable offence. And the last minute was really mental. Could easily have been won by both sides. The aforementioned Latoa hitting the crossbar, and then the ball rebounding down the other end. Off went Grosicki. Really should have scored, but managed to clip his chip narrowly wide. And that was the game. It ended 1-1 in front of a packed audience of 14,493. And it has to be said, the referee, who was a Monsieur Bastien, was certainly centre of attention. But honours even in the Brittany Derby, and that is Lorient. So there you go. That's our hipster teams done for another week. Obviously, when Tom and Jake return, you'll get their updates on their teams as well. If you do want to follow their progress, you can do so by following Red Bull Salzburg, which is Tom's team, and you can also follow Jake's team, who are Ajax. So have a look and see how they're getting on if you want to find out how their teams are doing.
Don't leave out poor Danny in Peterborough.
Oh, good point. How could I forget Danny? It's not that Peterborough are forgettable at all. I promise, Danny.
Leaving out the posh, that's terrible.
That is terrible. Yeah, I slapped myself on the wrist there. Right. Okay. So that's the Mighty 90 out of the way. Let's now proceed with our main segment of the podcast, which is, of course, the world of football. Okay, so the world of football. 5 major leagues across Europe, as well as the best of the rest from the world. And this week, we are going to start with a trip to all things Italian, and we're going to nip across to John for his Serie A lineup. So here we go. Serie A, the best of the rest. Here comes John.
Well, lots of big games to talk about from this weekend, but possibly the biggest story in Serie A this weekend was the goalkeeper starting for AC Milan, who won 2-1 at home to Sassuolo. Gianluigi Donnarumma, you can see I'll really practice that name, is the youngest goalkeeper to start in Serie A for 35 years. He's 16 years old, 8 months and 6 days. The youngest ever, I had to look all this up just to give you some really interesting facts. Youngest ever was Gianluca Pacchiarotti. God dear, I'm going to murder all these names. I'm worse than Danny now. Played for Pescara, who was 2 months younger. Interestingly, the youngest ever player was a guy named Ademi of Roma, and he was 15 years old and 9 months when he made his debut in a 2-2 draw with Fiorentina. That's some impressive age to start your footballing career. That was all the way back in 1937 as well. But the game itself, Milan, as they have been all season, a little bit questionable, not really very creative. They got a questionable penalty, and unfortunately Sassuolo had a man sent off, which sort of changed the tide of the game. Bacca scoring the penalty. Berardi, who has got a fantastic record against Milan, scored his 8th goal in 5 games against them. Wonderful free kick. Was the only mistake that the young goalkeeper Donnarumma really made in the game. He wrong-footed him. Should have probably saved that. But then Luis Adriano late on came on as a sub to score the winner. It's actually the worst defensive start that AC Milan have made in the league since the 83-84 season. So, despite the win, still some serious problems there at San Siro for them. Next game to look at really is the Fiorentina-Roma, which was a top of the table clash. Roma now top the league with a 2-1 win over Fiorentina, and the real story in the game was Mo Salah. As I'm sure some people will know, he was on loan last season at Fiorentina, and there's been some disputes over his contract, which we'll get into later. But he's now appearing for Roma on loan from Chelsea, and he scored the opening goal, and then later on in the game also got sent off as well, being constantly booed by the Fiorentina crowd. Great performance from him though. Another great goal from Gervinho as well. Brilliant goal on the counter. And Roma really hitting some decent form now. That's 4 wins in a row for Roma in the league. 3 defeats in all competitions for Fiorentina in the space of just over a week now. Babacar got the late consolation for Fiorentina, but by that point it was just too late. Roma themselves, bit up and down in terms of form. Had a slightly mad game in midweek against Leverkusen in the Champions League as well. Being 2-0 down and then going 4-2 up, then conceding 2 goals in the space of a couple of minutes right at the end. So, despite Garcia doing very well and taking Roma to the top of the league, there's still question marks about him as manager, despite the fact they're in that position. So, some still questions there over him. The other really informed team at the moment is Napoli. Not much of an exciting game when they played away at Chievo with a 1-0 win. Higuain scoring again. They've won the 8 of their last 9, scoring 25 goals and conceding only 3. So Napoli really in some hot form now. It was a bit of a scrappy game, but that's what you get when you go to Chievo. And the only other game really to point out with big results-wise was Juventus' comfortable 2-0 win at home to Atalanta. The big story, though, from the game was the fact that Pablo Dybala finally started for Juve after a lot of complaints about Allegri starting Simone Zaza up front instead. He scored a goal and set up Mario Mandzukic, who got his first goal for Juve in the league as well. Pogba had a penalty saved in the game, and he also had a strange little addition to his shirt. He's been given the number 10 famously, and saying it's weighing him down. He had 75 written on the back of his shirt, which some people thought was actually a plus symbol and the number 5, as if he was trying to change his number. Apparently it was in honour of Pele to celebrate his 75th birthday, which I thought was a nice little touch. Rest of the league, there was wins for impressive win for Lazio, 3-0 over Torino, a great 4-1 win for Samp, wonderful build-up and play for a goal between Muriel and Eder in that. Bologna and Empoli winning as well, and the first win for Udinese at the Stadio Friuli, and a draw between Inter and Palermo yet again. Inter still struggling against Palermo. It seems to happen every single season now. So the league table at the moment, Roma are top with 18 points. Napoli, Fiorentina, Lazio and Inter. Excuse me. Sorry, Roma's top with 20 points. Napoli, Fiorentina, Lazio and Inter make up the rest all on 18. So very tight at the top. Milan down in 10th on 13. Juventus are now up to 12th. I know it sounds strange saying Juventus up to 12th on 12. And there's just 4 points between the bottom 4 of Frosinone, Bologna, Verona and Carpi. And that's Verona still without a win in Serie A. So lots of excitement in Serie A this week.
Awesome. So, John, I did have a question actually. So, Roma are a top now. And despite, Mo Salah, he leads the team in goals. He's got 5, in 9 appearances, which is actually pretty good for a guy who didn't really make the grade at Chelsea. But it seems like the 10 goals, 8 assists that's provided by that Pjanic, Florenzi, Jorginho triumvirate's what's really kind of firing them forward. What do you have to say about both their form and being top of the league, and also that trio of players moving forward?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt the real star in the team is Pjanic. He just does everything from midfield, and Florenzi is just a wonderful player. If you've never seen him play, it's worth it seeing him, because he started out as a right back. Now he plays right wing. He can play on the left as well. He can play centre midfield. He's just a wonderful link-up player who will do anything you want for the team. Great ability. Pjanic's vision as well. Amazing. I think he's scored 6 of his last 8 attempts and free kicks. He's really taking over the title of free kick king in Serie since Pirlo has left. Amazing conversion rate, and it's the speed at which Roma break, because they obviously brought in Dzeko, who's not the quickest centre forward, and they've still got Francesco Totti at the club as well, but they play off those players, and the speed that they've got in Jorginho and Mo Salah is just explosive, and they're so hard to deal with on the break, and it's really what Garcia has built that team around.
John, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Lazio. You mentioned that they've won again, 8 straight home wins, sort of in Serie A now consecutively. One of the stars of their side, Felipe Anderson, another player I know you're very keen on. Do you want to just tell the listeners a bit about him?
Yeah, it's just a great, exciting talent to watch. He's, off the top of my head, I think he's 22 years old. Brazilian, just really exciting. Typical is what you'd see as an old-fashioned Brazilian winger. Can beat a man. He's got the pass, he's got the shooting, he's got the vision, and he's got unbelievable skill and that low centre of gravity that you can just turn on a sixpence and just completely lose his man. Really exciting to watch. And again, they're another team that sort of break the traditional sort of boring, slow Italian defensive football like Roma do, in that they have a very fast, fluid front three. Even when Miroslav Klose is playing, he's obviously another man who's not known for his pace, but they all play off of him, and you get that real movement from Anderson and from Antonio Candreva and Kirchner, as well as a player who might mention again later on. It's a really, really dynamic team, and again, another one who, if you haven't seen him play, you should really get a chance. I'm not sure how long he'll be at Lazio, to be honest, because there have been a lot of clubs sniffing around him already. There were certainly last summer, but he decided to do one more year at Lazio. But I could see him taking a move to bigger and better things in the summer.
I have another one for you, John. Verona is still winless in Serie A. Do you think that Mandolini is under a fair amount of pressure at this point? Do you think they'll give him time to sort of maybe try to right the ship, or do you think it's just, nail in the coffin, it's only a matter of time? Yeah,
no, I think that's all done. There was talk of, I think it was Prandelli, and there was another name mentioned as well, who's I'm actually lost. I can't remember who it was now. I did mention it last week. But, his time there is definitely up. He's not going to get a chance. He's had long enough to right the ship, so to speak, and it's just not working out. And they need results fast, because the longer they leave it, they're just going to slip further and further away and just not going to have enough time to claw back the points they need.
Tough times, it's fair to say. Any other thing I wanted to just mention briefly as well is you mentioned obviously Empoli. A really interesting stat that I saw about their result, obviously winning 2-0 at home. They've only scored 2 goals in the previous 4 games before that win. So certainly happy for them. And if you haven't seen the 4th goal that John mentioned there, the Muriel and Eder's combination play for Sampdoria's 4th goal against Verona, do look it up. It's
and any time you get to watch, if Sampdoria are at home, it's worth watching that game, because whether they win or lose, they always score a lot of goals.
Absolutely, yeah, 100% agree. Okay, good stuff. So that's Serie A. Thank you as always, John. We're going to go all things French next. We're going to take a trip across to the Ligue roundup.
Quel geste, l'égalisation de Zlatan Ibrahimovic, 23e minute, le 8e but cette saison du géant suédois, et celui-là, c'est vraiment un but. Christophe à la Zlatan, l'extérieur du pied, exceptionnel geste et égalisation du Paris Saint-Germain.
Okay, so Liga this week. Let's see what's been going on. Well, you'll be surprised to know that Paris Saint-Germain is still top of the table. That's a great surprise to many people. Finished the weekend, I should say, with a 4-1 win over St Etienne at the Parc des Princes. Fairly comfortable, fairly comprehensive. I was impressed with Esseric for St Etienne, who went close with a couple of shots, but overall PSG were pretty much in command from the first whistle, from the off and all the way throughout. Levan Kurzawa getting his first goal for the Parisians. Edinson Cavani scored one, missed two absolute sitters. Interestingly enough, Zlatan Ibrahimovic also scored a goal set up by Cavani, and indeed passed for Cavani's goal as well. So after everyone saying they don't like each other in the last few weeks, they've decided they do like each other again, and they're setting up goals for each other. So that's always nice to see. How long it continues, or whether it's just the fact that it's in the press, does make me wonder. Is that the reason they're doing it? Just purely to kind of right a few wrongs, shall we say? Lucas Moura got the fourth goal late on. Worth looking at this game for a comical Marco Verratti goal on the 73rd minute. Really was a thing of beauty from a player I love, I have to say. Elsewhere in Ligue 1 this weekend, Lyon, their recovery continues. They won 3-0 at home to Toulouse. First goals in that game for Mathieu Valbuena and Sergi Darder, who I'll bring up a little bit later on. And a late goal, first ever Ligue 1 goal for Cornet, who's only 19 years of age. He came on as a late substitute and notched the third goal. AC Ajaccio, first ever win in the top flight, and they got it over the in-form Nice, who we've mentioned on this podcast the first 2 weeks. They won 3-1. First goal in the first minute from Puyol was a real cracker. So they're getting their first win. Other goals from Filippini and Jokic. So they're off the bottom. They're second bottom, but hey, it's progress. The other top two high flyers that no one expected, Danny's Khan, and Angers. Angers drew 0-0 at home to Guingamp. They stay second, and Khan actually lost 2-0 at home to Nantes, but they do stay third, so they're still riding high. And elsewhere, Montpellier, they got a much needed victory over Bastia. 2-0. The latter of the two, Bastia, really are in free fall. They've lost 4 of the last 5 games. Worth looking up the goal from Ninga for Montpellier. It was an absolute cracker, sort of side-on scissor kick volley from the edge of the box. That's well worth a look up. We already mentioned the Brittany derby between Lorient and Rennes. One notable thing to come out of that game, I mentioned in my Mighty 90 roundup that the goal was given for the use of goal line technology. That's actually the first time in French football history that a goal has been given via goal line technology. So we've seen it across all the other major leagues in Europe. This is the first time it's ever been used in Liga, and unfortunately it came against Lorient. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Other wins or other games to probably not so much worth mentioning, but we'll just give you some updates. The game between Ram and Monaco won 1-0 away from home. Also wins for Bordeaux at home to Troyes. Lille losing at home again, this time to Marseille, who had a much needed win. Goal from Alessandrini is worth looking up in that game. And as I say, we've mentioned Lyon's return to form. That Lyon have now gone 4th in the table, sitting in behind PSG, Angers and Cannes. Nice, despite their defeat this weekend, remains 6th. And if you look at the bottom end, Troyes, they've gone bottom now. Gazalec Ajaccio, we mentioned, is second bottom. Toulouse, Montpellier, Bastia and Lille still struggling at the wrong end of the table. So that kind of covers most of what's gone on in Ligue 1 this weekend. I just wanted to ask our panellists a couple of quick questions. John, I'll come to you first.
Sure.
We mentioned, obviously, PSG kind of running away with the French league. They had a big Champions League game in midweek. Drew 0-0 with Real Madrid. It was largely a stinking game, which I sat through twice. What do you make of PSG and their sort of pursuit? Obviously, they're trying to build something in Europe. Do you think that they could be the real deal in Champions League terms?
They've certainly got a very good squad. I think the problem comes with the competition they face in Ligue 1 because, to be honest, every season people know PSG are going to win the league at the moment because there isn't really someone challenging them. I mean, below them, then there's a real competition. It's really exciting in Ligue 1. It's probably one of the most exciting leagues below PSG. But I think that the fact that they don't get pushed in their own league will make them ultimately suffer when it comes to games in Europe, because you need that little bit of sharpness, that bit of edge. I think teams can learn how to deal with that, because you look at someone maybe like Bayern perhaps had suffered that problem for a while but seemed to be getting over that. But the interesting thing will be when Zlatan leaves. For me, that will be the really interesting point when he goes and Cavani takes the main role, and how the team runs then. Will you get to see the best out of Pastore, Lucas Moura, and players like that? Not doubting Zlatan's ability, because he's a great player, but whether he has too much control over the team is maybe a bit of a question mark for me that might ultimately hold them back in the Champions League.
Yeah, good stuff. I completely agree with those points. I do think they'll go close this year. I've got a sneaking feeling we shall see what happens on
They've
that one.
certainly got one of the best midfields.
Yes.
If they're all fit, that midfield is really formidable.
One of the best in Europe, couldn't agree more. PSG obviously played 11-1-9, drawn 2, so they're 7 points clear at the top. So I think it's fair to say it's probably Liga is probably going back to Paris once again. Drew, just before we leave France, I wanted to bring up another one of the old classic giants of French football that are continuing to struggle despite a win this weekend, and that is Marseille.
Sure.
Currently sitting 14th in the league. Obviously, they dispatched with El Loco Bielsa in the sort of early part of the season, or he left, whichever way you look at it. They replaced him with Michel, the former Real Madrid manager. In the sort of limited bits and bobs you've seen of Marseille, what do you make of them and this dramatic sort of fall from grace almost?
Oh, it's difficult. I mean, Marseille used to be one of those teams that used to hate potentially drawing in the Champions League, is that like the kind of third seed, kind of in the pot kind of thing. They used to be one of the troublesome sides you can come up against. And for me, I just feel like they do play brilliant attacking football at times. The way they possess it, even it's kind of for some Arsenal fans maybe listening, almost is kind of similar to that. They're getting goals from Michy Batshuayi, which doesn't really surprise a lot of us. He's got some ability there, and Alisson Drini is doing really well. But their issue seems to be at the back. They're not very good at stopping the counter. Again, that's sort of almost kind of a shout towards any Arsenal fans out there to where they want to impose the match the way they want to, but it'll bite them when they get countered. And for that, they've dropped points they probably shouldn't have been dropping. They've lost at home to Angers, and that's probably completely unacceptable. Just as a recent fixture, just to throw it out there. So I feel like if he's going to sort of try to put his rubber stamp on the club, he needs to get them playing better at the back, but he also needs to get them performing consistently in the matches where points are necessary. And that Angers match was one of those examples I was bringing up. But he's getting the best out of some of his players, but there are other players who need to sort of step up and need to get best out of them as well. Just consistency across the board is going to be necessary. Yeah,
absolutely. Well said. Just to draw a line under Liga, then the upcoming fixtures, couple to look out for. Rennes entertain PSG on Friday night. The best of the Saturday fixtures. It's probably not one that leaps off the page, but I think it might be an interesting clash between Bastia and Cannes. Obviously, Cannes sort of flying high, and Bastia really in need of the points. And the best of the Sunday games, probably Marseille that we mentioned before. They're away at Nantes. So a couple of games for you to look out for there. All right, so that draws the line under Liga. Let's go all things German next. So we're going to go back to Drew, and we're going to go for a roundup of the Bundesliga.
Groß geht kurz. Özil. Mertesacker! Nachschuss von Müller! Aus dem Stegreif das 1:0 für Deutschland.
Fantastic. All right, I guess may as well start at the top. With the top, Bayern rolled out 4-0 winners at the Allianz Arena against Cologne, which probably doesn't surprise anybody at this point. Interesting note, Robin, in his first start since coming back from injury, scored the opening goal. Vidal, Lewandowski, and Thomas Müller also netted the goals there, and that puts Müller now at 10 goals in 10 appearances this season domestically, which is kind of a little ridiculous. But again, I don't think any of us are really surprised because of how ruthless he is in the final third. Dortmund thrashed Augsburg 5-1 at Signal Iduna Park. Aubameyang netted a hat-trick. Royce bagged a brace. Aubameyang is now level with Lewandowski for the league lead on 13 goals. I do believe, let me just double check, but Aubameyang now in all competitions, domestic and in the Europa League, the only match he has failed to register a goal or an assist in the last 10 appearances was against Krasnodar in their most recent Europa League match. And also he has 21 goals in 12 appearances for club and country this season so far. So one of the most informed players in the world at the moment. Where are we going back to? Oh, yes. So Wolfsburg's the poor finishing. They only won 1-0 at Darmstadt. Danny Caligiuri came off the bench in the 77th minute, bagged the winner. The back four played brilliantly, but they just could not bury chances, and it was one of those where you thought that Darmstadt could maybe just nick one at the end, because despite being newly promoted, they've shown themselves to be kind of a handful this year, especially at the back, and just have a way of sort of hitting you when you least expect it. Bremen ran out 3-1 winners at Mainz, broke their streak of losing 5 on the spin. They're out of the cellar at the moment. Anthony Uja bagged a brace. Finn Bartels had the third. Yoshinori Moto had Mainz's only goal. Hoffenheim now failed to collect the full 3 points in 3 matches. They lost 1-0 to Hamburg at home. Pierre-Michel Lasogga bagged the only goal there in the 87th minute, a little late, kind of hard done there, but if you don't take your chances, you don't. Let's see. Top 3 right now. Bayern on 30 points out of possible 30. Dortmund still sitting second, 7 points behind on 23. Schalke are sitting 4 points further behind Dortmund, and then Wolfsburg 1 point behind that, so that's the top 4 right now for the Champions League spots. Stuttgart, Hoffenheim, and Augsburg are 16th, 17th, and 18th. Augsburg just seem to, I don't know what, they're just a complete shadow of themselves from the form they had in last season that sort of saw them finish in that Europa League spot. So it seems like it's going to be one of those one and out sort of deals again for them. A quick note, actually, Ingolstadt are still in the top half of the table. They did lose 1-0 at home to Hertha Berlin, but they have the second best defensive record in the Bundesliga. They've only allowed 8 goals in 10 matches. The problem is they've only scored 6. But for a newly promoted side, 4 wins, 2 draws out of 10 matches is actually pretty solid. So the top 5 in goals right now, Lewandowski, Aubameyang, as mentioned before, tied on 13. Muller has 10, Bas Dost has 6, and Yunus Mali has 6. And top 5 in assists, Costa and Rafael are tied on 6. Kagawa has 5, so another resurgence from going back to his beloved Dortmund. And 2 more Dortmund players, Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, both have 3 assists as well. Also, Bayern's win at the weekend was 1,000 for them. And Johannes Geis had an absolutely ridiculous sending off against John's beloved Gladbach. So that's kind of it for the moment. But I will point out real quick just some upcoming fixtures to keep note of. Wolfsburg-Leverkusen is probably the best of the bunch next weekend. But Dortmund-Bremen, with Bremen being the home side, could be a little bit tricky considering Bremen just sort of bounced back in positive fashion. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Drew, Dortmund obviously second in the league at the moment, the only sort of perceivable challengers to Bayern despite their imperious form, and Aubameyang, it's Danny every time he starts saying names and I can't pronounce them anymore. Anyway, he's in some seriously imperious form at the moment. Is that just his natural ability? Is that down to Tuchel bringing the best out of him? I mean, I saw his hat-trick and the third goal, the ball just was glued to his foot. It's unbelievable control. I mean, is that all from him?
I think, honestly, I would probably say a bit of both. I know Kris can attest to what Aubameyang can do because of his time he spent at, especially Saint-Etienne and in Ligué. And he's always been a very good player, especially technically. He can play 4 different positions. For a very pacey guy, he can hold up the ball very, very well. But I think Tuchel is also bringing the best out of him. Up till this point, in 13-14, he only had 13 goals, 4 assists in the full campaign. And last season, he had 16 and 6 assists in 33 appearances. This year, he has 13 goals and 3 assists in 10 appearances, which is already it's already been better than his first season at the club. I think it's just a bit of both. I think you see he's maturing as a player. He's not a young player by any means. I think he's 27 now, so he's actually entering his prime. So it's maybe not a shock that he's putting up these kind of numbers in this kind of season at the age he's in. This is what you would expect from someone like him. But I think Tuchel, Klopp last season, Dortmund struggled so much because they had to completely revamp their style of play, especially when they were off the ball. Now that defensive responsibilities are being given to the right players, not everyone is being asked to run themselves ragged defensively. I think the offensive players are saving a lot of their energies in the final third, and that's why you're seeing Dortmund being revamped. So it is a bit of both. But don't take anything from Aubameyang. He is an absolutely brilliant talent. And I know, again, as we all have our biases, I don't know if he'll stay at Dortmund forever. I can probably see a bigger club coming in from eventually at some point down the road.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. A couple of quick things I just wanted to mention myself, Drew, as well.
Sure.
Firstly, the 3 goals in 6 minutes for Werder Bremen. I think it's definitely worth people checking that out.
Yes.
Really quick fire score, and they seem to have returned to form. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about Karim Bellarabi. Put my teeth in now. He scored after 27 seconds of coming on for Leverkusen this week. Just tell us a bit about what he's like as a player. He's getting rave reviews this season.
Which is funny. I don't know. I feel like he's done quite well in Champions League. He hasn't scored any goals, but he has been instrumental in Leverkusen's showings. But for me, I feel like while the ability is there, he's a brilliant attacking player, especially on the counter, and especially with the ball at his feet. For me, I feel like sometimes he's a little inconsistent, which is weird because he's going on 26 years old. So you would think that may be something of a trend that he would have bucked by now. But there are moments where like he's there 1 minute and just the next, it just doesn't really exist, which is a little bizarre. His recent performances in Germany, again, he's been great or he's not been great. So I feel like his only weakness as a player would be he has to turn up every outing, and he doesn't. I feel like that's what's holding him back. But the ability is there. I think maybe sometimes the mental aspect of his game is not at that mature level that you want yet. But he's definitely a player that Leverkusen can continue to build around, and they have other players that are going to be at the club that complement him really well. Hakan Calhanoglu is there. He's a very creative player. Julian Brandt is coming through, and eventually he'll go from strength to strength. He's only 19, but they have high hopes for him there as well. Who else can I mention? Kevin Campbell came over from Dortmund, and he's done well. So they have the attacking core that they can sort of play off who they want to match up with Bellarabi from day to day. But again, it's up to Bellarabi to always just show up when they need him most. It's simple for me, but the ability is there, but the consistency isn't.
Drew, you touched briefly on the Geist tackle in the Gladbach-Schalke game. Obviously, I was watching the game cheering Gladbach on, and I just couldn't believe why he even made the attempt for the tackle that he did. I mean, there was no intention to play the ball, and the fact that Andre Hahn's leg just didn't snap on impact was amazing. And then, and then he just argued with the referee as if it was absurd that he even got booked. It was amazing. I mean, I've seen guys play obviously for quite a while, and I've never seen him react like that way or get that sort of angry. Is it something that's in his character that you've seen before, or?
Honestly, no. We've always had our side discussions on WhatsApp, and once I saw that Geis was on the transfer table, I was like screaming that our team who we love, who we won't necessarily mention, would go after him. He's an excellent talent, and he's done quite well this season. From a deeper area, he has provided 3 assists. He creates chances from that holding midfield role. He's more of a creative deeper player. Kind of, you can even think maybe almost like in a sort of similar but different way, kind of like an Edgar Davids in his prime, where he wasn't just that holding player, he was also creative in his own right from a deeper area. Geis is that kind of player, so for me, I've never seen him sort of react like that, but I saw the challenge, and like you, we were talking about the other day, I believe, where how Andre Hahn is walking at this point is a little shocking. I don't think it's going to be something that people have to get used to. I think that was almost kind of a one-off. That was actually Schalke's only red card of the season, was that one right there. So I don't think it's in his character. But obviously I can't speak to why he reacted the way he did, but I wouldn't say that it's going to be a trend for him. Just sometimes those players have those one-off mistakes, but I just don't know why. It was definitely out of character for him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sort of ban I assume that he will get for that tackle. Andre Hahn, by the way, is out till at least the new year. Unsurprisingly.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, that's the latest news so far. So, hopefully not as bad as it looked, but obviously he's out for a few months, and that's not great news for Gladbach. He's had some serious injury problems since he's moved there.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. One from me, Drew. Just want a very, very brief answer on this one. Leroy Sané, a player that fans of Championship Manager and FIFA might be aware of, but not many others. He's tearing it up for Schalke this season. How good do you think this kid can be?
I think he can be very good. We all know how many good young players are coming through that German youth pipeline, and Schalke have quite a few good players. Max Meyer is already there. As John already brought him up, Leroy Sané is there. Leon Goretzka is also there. Johannes Geis is only 22. So they're building something around younger players. Pierre Milholder is also there, although he's Danish, but he's been in Germany forever. Sané he's very adaptable. He can play on either flank. He's very good counterattacking, but he does like the ball at his feet. He does like to create for himself, and he has an eye for goal from wider areas. Oddly enough, he has the most goals right now in the league for Schalke. He has 3. He also has he's second most in assists with 2, behind oddly enough Johannes Geis. So it seems like for a 19-year-old, his game is actually very well rounded for a player who is smaller. He's quick. He's usually a wider player, but we're seeing more and more now from young wide players that like to cut inside centrally. I think we say that across no matter what league we look at. So I think he can actually be very, very good, but it's going to be up to Schalke to sort of nurture him properly. I mentioned Julian Brandt before at Bayer Leverkusen. He's struggling more to make a bigger impact at the same age as Sané is at a club who do rely on counterattacking, like Schalke can from time to time. So as long as they handle him correctly the way they have been this season, they trusted him. He did very, very well last season. He had an excellent preseason, so they should have trusted a young player, and he's repaying their faith for it. So this season will kind of lay a benchmark. I feel like at the end of the season, if he does as well as he has been, he's someone they can build around if they keep him. That would be the question.
Yeah, definitely some big clubs circling, shall we say. Okay, good stuff. The final thing I'll say just before we leave Germany, my beloved SC Paderborn, we didn't mention them last week, but we will mention this week. They have a new manager, certain Mr. Stefan Effenberg, 2 wins out of 2. So both clean sheets, both 2-0. But I think it's fair to say the test away at Borussia Dortmund on Wednesday in the DFB Pokal is probably going to be the biggest test he's had. So just wanted to give a nod to Big Stefan there. So good. But thank you as ever, Drew. That was very thorough. We'll be back to you in a short time for something else. In the meantime, we're going to go across to Spain, and filling in for Tom will be myself with the La Liga update.
Toca también Rubén Bezo, le llega Di María centra el remate.
Okay, so La Liga this week. What's been happening? Well, Tom has been very kind to send me plenty of information, so I shall rattle through. Barcelona, we all know who they are. They came from a goal down at home to Eibar. Luis Suarez hat-trick, giving them a 3-1 win, which also saw a game that also saw Javier Mascherano sent off late. Never heard that before, honest. Tom assures me, and from what I saw, I agree, Eibar were quite unlucky in that game. They took the game to Barca, and were a little bit unfortunate not to claim something out of it. Elsewhere, Villarreal, only 2 goals for them in 4 matches, 1 point from 9. They struggled with a 0-0 draw away at Las Palmas, who are also fellow strugglers, so their kind of form is falling off. Real Madrid, they actually beat Celta Vigo, who have also been flying high. Celta very unlucky, actually. Keylor Navas had a storming game for Real Madrid, but a 3-1 victory for Real Madrid secured the points. They starting to find their groove. I think it's fair to say, Real. They haven't sort of lit up anybody yet, but this season I think it's slowly beginning to click. Cristiano on the goal sheet once again. The other 2 goals from Danilo and Marcelo late on. Nolito predictably scoring for Celta Vigo. The big game of Sunday evening saw Atletico Madrid beat Valencia 2-1. Really, really good game of football, actually. Really, really worth digging out the highlights of that one. Atletico's goals from Jackson Martinez and Ferreira Carrasco. Alcacer got a penalty back for Valencia, but it wasn't enough. The best of the rest, really. The under pressure David Moyes and Real Sociedad, they won 4-0 away at Levante. Levante are absolute mess at the moment. They really are on the slide. They're searching for a new boss after they fired Lucas Alvarez after the game. Levante sit bottom. They've lost 3 of the last 5. Really are struggling. Only 1 win all season and a goal difference of -13. So the pressure temporarily lifted for Sociedad and indeed David Moyes. Carlos Vela grabbing a couple of goals in that game. So hopefully that's a turn of form for them, or certainly hopefully for David Moyes. Sevilla, they're also a team that a lot of people are looking at with their Champions League form. They got a 5-0 victory, a game that saw 3 penalties. 2 of them were scored, and one of them obviously was missed, but they came away with the points. They beat Getafe, who are notoriously not particularly good away from home, and Kevin Gamero, the French forward, bagging a hat-trick in that game. As far as the upcoming games, should also say as well, actually, Sevilla are now up to 8. They've won 3 of the last 5, so their form seems to be turning. And the fixtures to look out for, probably the standout fixture this weekend is going to be Villarreal against Sevilla. 2 sides that like to play attacking, enterprising football. That should be worth tuning in for on Saturday night. Just to round up where the table stands, well, predictably, Real Madrid and Barcelona are the top 2. Atletico is third, 21 points each for the two giants, and Atletico just 2 points behind on 19 points. Celta Vigo fourth, Villarreal fifth. Deportivo returned to form for them this season. They're up to 6th currently. As we mentioned before, Sevilla 8th, Valencia 9th, and then down towards the bottom, Levante, Granada and Las Palmas make up the bottom 3, with surprisingly Athletic Club or Bilbao, whichever you prefer, they were down in 17th at time of recording, but they were due to play Sporting Gijón this evening, so that may well have changed since. So that is La Liga. Just going to fire one question to each of our panellists. John, I'm going to come to you first of all. Sure. Luis Suarez bagging a hat-trick for Barcelona. Neymar got 4 goals last week. Would it be fair to say that they're doing all right without a certain Mr. Lionel Messi?
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, the team's got ridiculous talent anyway, but obviously any side is going to miss Messi because it's just amazing. You know, there's nothing really to say about him. But when you have the quality of Luis Suarez and Neymar and the way and the speed that they've both adapted to the league, and the accepting the Barca style. Barca have changed their style slightly to accommodate them, and obviously when the 3 of them are playing, Neymar, Suarez and Messi, they have changed slightly, less of the tiki-taka football that they were famous for under Pep. But doing great, and if they can keep that form up until Messi comes back, then you've got to think that not just are they sort of hot favourites perhaps for La Liga, then for the Champions League as well. Because if you can get a fully fit Messi come back into that team, then they're going to be a real handful for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty good if you lose your star player and you can bring in Neymar and Messi, Neymar and Suarez. Sorry, it can't be too bad, can it? Drew, I want to ask you a story that came to light this week, which was certainly grabbed me. This story about a certain linesman and the upcoming Real Madrid-Barcelona match, or Clásico, whichever you prefer, El Clásico, I should say. What was this story about, from what you can gather?
Honestly, I probably don't know too much about it because I realistically do not pay that much attention to Spain. I probably should, but it's my understanding that there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a bias towards a particular team of that too. Which, I don't know. You should probably fill me in, and I can just give my opinion on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, I mean, from what I can gather, I kind of set you up there. I do apologise, but from what I can gather, there's a linesman has come out in the Spanish press and said that he's essentially been told to favour one side in that upcoming Clásico, and the talk is that this has thrown everything in Spain up. It's all gone completely off basically in Spain, and the talk is that the linesman in question, excuse me, the linesman in question is saying that he kind of fears for his life if he doesn't do the right things, and he's been pretty much told in no equivocal circumstances, this is what you have to do, and obviously a lot of it's been brushed under the carpet, and it's not, it's all been dismissed as just claims and whatnot, but this sort of thing, it does go on, doesn't it? Match fixing, and obviously John would say in Italy as well. It's a bit of a worry.
Big problem. It still is to a degree in Italy.
Yeah,
I think it's actually a bigger problem in a lot of leagues, and people don't really speak about it. I mean, I know the Serie match fixing scandal. We all can remember that from recent memory, but it would not surprise me if this is a bigger issue in La Liga. Actually, to be honest, because I feel like everyone in Spain is still worried about keeping the status of the league, competing for, prestige and whatever have you. Real Madrid and Barcelona almost sort of need to be the top 2 teams in the league and also the world as well. And they always need Champions League for that. So you do have to wonder if this is actually the case. How many other instances could things like this have happened, not just in El Clásico and other matches? Again, because there's money in it for probably a lot of people, for Real Madrid and Barca to always be fighting for the top 2 spots. I know our friend Luka Kolakusic could tell you that there's massive corruption in the Croatian leagues and leagues in Eastern Europe, and so it's not as surprising. And you had people for years talk about how Man United used to get that that Fergie time when Howard Webb was, the officiating, the head official. So it's not a surprise to me at all. And it's one of the things where it would potentially be tough to stamp out because you don't really know how deep one of these things could go, who's really involved, how many clubs could be involved, because it might not just be officials from Real or Barca or just the Spanish league on the whole. It could trickle down to other smaller clubs. Who knows? It could be like arrangements going on between clubs. Those sort of things can happen in professional sports, especially when that amount of money is involved. So it's unfortunate, but it's good that if it is true, that someone did come out with it, and that sheds some light on a few things for us. At least now the knowledge is there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that story, and there's a very good piece on the Mail online if anyone wants to read up about it. But
a good piece on the Mail? What?
Yeah, I know it's rare, very rare. But it's a very good piece from Pete Jensen, who's a very well respected Spanish journalist. Yeah. So, but yeah, the talk is that he's been asked to favour Real Madrid. So I'm sure we'll be keeping our eyes peeled ahead of that clash, which is next month, and we'll obviously be covering that here on the pod. So that draws a line under Spain. As always, if you've got any questions for anything in all Spanish, give Tom a tweet. I think I'm right in saying he'll be back next week, so he'll have a chance to answer any questions you may have. So with that being said, just the one league left before we zip around a quick trip of the rest of the world. Our league left, John's going to fill in for Jake, and this is time for the Premier League.
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Okay, so this was the weekend of lots of derbies, some very good ones and a very disappointing one. But actually we're going to first go off to Villa Park. Two managers under pressure. One has been sacked, that would be Tim Sherwood of Aston Villa. The other, for some reason, is under pressure according to the newspapers, but nobody else who's got a brain, that being Gary Monk. Swansea haven't been great in the league as of late, but they beat Villa 2-1. A fairly drab game, it's fair to say. But Tim Sherwood's time, it appears, was the writing was on the wall for him before the game, regardless of the result. Lots of rumours flying around that there was talks already in place for a new manager coming in. So he was sacked after just 8 months in charge, and that was Villa's 6th straight defeat in the league. So it's not particularly surprising that he's gone. The famous win percentage that he always liked to go on about when he was at Spurs, unfortunately tactics Tim, that's down to 26% now, so not quite as good as you thought. Kevin McDonald, the under-21 coach, is going to be taking over in the interim. The talk at the moment is that it looks like Remy Gard is the hot favourite to take over at Villa. David Moyes, his name has been thrown about as well, but Philippe Auclair was talking today and saying that looks like it's pretty much on and was probably decided before that game. Another big derby, one of the big derbies was the Tyne Weir derby, which finished Newcastle 0, Sunderland 3. The Sunderland's amazing tactic of firing their manager a game before the derby seems to have worked yet again. Big Sam getting a win. The unbelievable thing in the game is the fact that Newcastle didn't score a goal. They had 21 shots, Newcastle, to Sunderland's 9 in the entire game. They were absolutely all over Sunderland, and Sunderland got what I would have called a lucky penalty towards the end of the first half, and Colaccini being sent off and Adam Johnson scoring goals from Fletcher and Jones as well. That's the record 6th win over their Tyneside rivals there. So real pressure now on Steve McLaren at Newcastle, just after they get that fantastic result against Norwich in the 6-2, and then losing the derby game. The Geordies are up in arms about that. Another derby in the north, this time to the northwest, saw United against City in Manchester, and it was 0-0. And that's probably the most exciting thing I could say about the game, to be honest. The highlight of it, Jesse Lingard hit the bar. That's pretty much it. The only other thing really to say about it is that Wayne Rooney got amazing stats for this game. He had the lowest passing, the least touches, and lost the ball more than any other player on his team, prompting some questions for Van Gaal about whether Rooney should be starting games or whether he should be dropped. Because the only player in a United shirt who looked like he was really doing anything was the young kid Anthony Martial. So perhaps Wayne Rooney's time isn't is perhaps over at United. The last derby to talk about is the London derby, big fierce rivalry between West Ham and Chelsea, and things just go from bad to worse for Jose Mourinho and his men. West Ham winning 2-1, deservedly so. They may have been at home, but they played like the away side, defending stoutly and hitting Chelsea on the break. Great goal from Zarate, really good volley to get a great finish. And then just in the space of 10 minutes, Chelsea just seemed to completely lose their heads. One of the assistant coaches got sent off for Chelsea, and Nemanja Matic got 2 bookings within the space of 9 minutes. The whole team was protesting. I think they ended up with 6 yellow cards, which is an automatic fine from the FA. Mourinho himself was sent off at half-time, was talking to the referee John Moss, who told him to go to the stands. So he was standing with the Chelsea fans, watching the game. Second half, weirdly, going down to 10 minutes actually did seem to help Chelsea because West Ham set off them a little bit too much and gave them space. Cahill getting an equaliser from the corner, but then Andy Carroll coming back to fitness, came on as a sub and scoring the winner. The luck was really against Chelsea. Kurt Zouma put a great header in, which for everyone else thought was a goal, and the goal line technology showed that it did not quite cross the line, and when I say quite not, it was probably by a millimetre. Cesc Fabregas also scoring from what was called as an offside, but could have gone either way. West Ham, interestingly now, they've won all 3 London derbies so far this season, so we're on a really good run. Chelsea have already lost 5 games this season. It's just unbelievable. So Jose, things aren't going well, and lots of talk about him possibly not being in the job soon, which is quite a surprise. As for the rest of the league, Arsenal, great win against Everton, all 2-1 win. So I'm going to go joint top with Manchester City. Spurs hit Bournemouth for 5. Perhaps not a surprising result, but good news for Spurs that Harry Kane was back on the score sheet with a hat-trick. Leicester win again, and Jamie Vardy scores again. The man is just one of the most informed strikers in Europe. Wonderful goal, brilliant little touch, and then flick past the keeper. West Brom get a win. Watford win away at Stoke, and Troy Deeney getting his first goal in the Premier League, which will really help him out. Very impressive striker, scored throughout all the league. So I hope for Watford's sake he does well for them for the rest of the season. And the last game of the weekend saw a draw between Liverpool and Southampton. So the table at the moment looks like this, with City top, with Arsenal both on 22 points. West Ham third on 20 points, perhaps a little bit surprising, but their away form this season has been sensational. United in 4th on 20 points, Leicester in 5th, doing really well. Ranieri, the Tinkerman, much maligned, is coming, doing great things with that team. He's got 19 points for Leicester now in 5th place. Spurs up to 6th on 17. Their form continues to improve. Villa rock bottom, just on 4 points, with Sunderland and Newcastle also in the relegation zone, only on 6 points. So it's not looking good for the Tyneside teams either.
All right, John. 2 matches now for Klopp. 2 draws. 1 at home, 1 away. Only 1 goal scored in those 2 games that he's been in charge so far. Do you think that he has what it takes to sort of revamp the shit show that Rodgers made it into, personnel-wise, or do you feel like he needs more than just this season to really try and get Liverpool back and firing again?
I think it's always hard to judge a manager when he's come in sort of this time of the season, because the players aren't his. You know, he's got to work with what is there. There's no doubt in Klopp's ability as a manager. We've all seen what he can do with players. Excuse me. No one had heard of Lewandowski or those sort of players before, and look what they're doing now. So he can discover gems and really improve on a player's ability. Liverpool are suffering still at the back defensively is a big issue they need to sort out. They're really missing Jordan Henderson as well, who strikes me as a Klopp player, not necessarily in terms of technical ability, but in terms of his work rate, and he can really do that pressing style that Klopp likes. And also, obviously, Coutinho is a big loss. You've seen some of the things he's done when he's been fit this season. So he's got to be given time. That's the real pressure. And the problem with all the top leagues is when you take a big job is whether you get that time. I think if he gets this full season, then gets a summer to have a real transfer window, then you'll see what he can really do for Liverpool.
John, I wanted to just pick up. You mentioned obviously Arsenal going joint top of the table this weekend. Seem to be banging form. There's a certain German who wears 11 who's certainly kicking into some really high level form this season. I read an interesting stat about Mesut Ozil. 93 assists now since August 2008, and that's only 5 behind Lionel Messi, who is top of the charts. How good has Ozil been these past couple of weeks, and how much has his form helped Arsenal's form to recover from a mixed start?
Oh, drastically. When you see the best of Mesut Ozil, you will see the best of every other player on the pitch. And it's what Arsenal fans have been calling out for. You really want to see, regardless of a fee, it's just the name and you know the ability of a player and what he can do. It's why he perhaps sometimes harshly gets criticised in the media and by fans and rivals, but because you know what he can do on the pitch and with the ball and his vision and the energy and just the way he can craft a game, sometimes without even touching the ball, just with his movement, it's so important. And when you know a player can do that, you want to see that every single minute on the pitch. But in the last few weeks, he's been in really scintillating form. He looks much hungrier. Looks like he wants to score goals as well as set them up, and he just wants to win every single game. So the longer that Arsene Wenger can keep Mesut Ozil playing to the level he is right now, the greater chance that Arsenal have of staying at the top of the table.
All right, John, you and I both have seen quite a bit of Kevin De Bruyne because of his time in the Bundesliga. So coming over to City this summer, in 6 appearances, he has 3 goals and 3 assists. And to be honest, he's been one of the best players they've had up until the derby. He didn't play very well. But do you think, despite the poor showing and a very big fixture for his club, do you still think he'll make the grade and he'll really cement himself as one of the next crop of really good up and young up and coming number 10s, or do you think he is a little bit overrated, like some would suggest?
Oh no, I think the kid's got real talent. Like we were just talking about Ozil before, when he first came to Arsenal, he was sensational his first couple of games, and then his form dropped off a little bit. And that will happen with players. You know, it's one game, and because of the price tag and the hype around him, everything he does will get over-exaggerated to the nth degree. So if he scores a wonder goal, it will be the greatest goal that a kid of his age has ever scored in the Premier League, and if he plays badly, it will be the worst performance that a overpriced player, as they will then decide to call him, has ever put in. You know, the game itself was very defensive. The first half wasn't as, I know I said it was dull, and it was a dull game, but the first half wasn't terrible. It was just 2 very good defensive performances, which really negated players like Sterling and Kevin De Bruyne, but also there's a lot of pressure on him because of his price tag, and also the fact that David Silva is missing from that team. And when you are giving the ball to Wilfred Bonney up front, it's a lot more difficult for you to get those assist stats and those pass completion things as to when you might say giving the ball to Sergio Aguero instead. Your numbers are going to look slightly better. So I think you have to take those things into account. And also, you know, he's only just come in, so you know, I think he's done very well and will continue to do so. And I hope, although I'm not a City fan, but as a personal fan of the player himself, I really do hope he does well.
Yeah, good shout. It's a good update from all things Premier League, so thank you for that, John. And as always, Jake will be back. He's moving house at the moment, so we hope to have Jake back hopefully next week. So he will return. He hasn't been sacked, I promise. But no, hopefully Jake's move is going well. So if you have any questions on anything Premier League, we'll all be happy to answer. But do drop Jake a tweet if you've got anything specific. Right, so that pretty much does it for our 5 major European leagues. So now, for a couple of minutes, we're just going to rattle through a little segment that we call the best of the rest.
E aí o time do São Paulo, a jogada feita, o tiro pro gol! Gol! Pato! Gol do São Paulo!
Okay, so we're going to start the best of the rest. We're going to run through a couple of notable highlights across the world of football, or in fact, in this case, this week, it's just other European games that we've taken note of. I want to start very quickly with an update from Drew. Just briefly, can you bring us up to speed on what's happening in all things Holland / the Netherlands, depending on where you come from?
Sure. Last weekend, I'll just run through the results real quick. Utrecht went to PSV Zwolle, who was a surprise package last season and ran out 2-1 winners. Willem II and Heerenveen drew 2-2. Heracles continued their surprising form, keeping them fourth, and they won 1-0 at the Graafschap. PSV Eindhoven won 3-1 at 20. Excelsior won 2-1 at Roda JC. Cambuur and ADO Den Haag drew 1-1, and that's Cambuur's fifth draw in a row. They still have yet to win a single match. Ajax went to Vitesse Arnhem and won 3-1. NEC Nijmegen and Groningen drew 1-1. And as I mentioned before, Feyenoord won at home 3-1 to AZ Alkmaar. Top three right now is Ajax on 25 points, Feyenoord on 25 points, PSV Eindhoven on 21 points. Notable would, as I said before, Heracles Almelo sitting on 21 points, 7 wins out of 10. Actually looking like a surprise package this season, but maybe perhaps not all that sustainable. The Graafschap sit bottom. No wins on the season. Cambuur is 17th on 6 points. Willem II is 16th on 7 points. As support top scorer in the league is Dirk Kuyt. Luke de Jong at PSV Eindhoven has 8. Anwar El Ghazi has 8 goals. Keep an eye out for him, by the way. He's only 20 years old and he's making some big waves in the country, so expect a move away from Ajax from him in another year or two. Sebastian Haller has 7 goals for Utrecht, and Mike Havenaar, the Dutch/Japanese international, with 7 goals for ADO Den Haag. And the best of the matches coming up next week, probably, ironically enough, Ajax Roda JC. If Roda sometimes can come up with a decent performance despite not being in form, and considering how well Feyenoord's playing, Ajax can't afford to slip up.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Drew. It's nice to just sort of keep tabs on other leagues as we go by. There's 3 other fixtures I just wanted to rattle through quickly before we go over to John for a little Russian update. There was a massive game this weekend in Portugal. We touched on it last week. It was one of our Hipsters' choice, which, by the way, every week we're going to tweet a list of 5 or 6 games that we call our sort of Hipsters' choice games to follow. So keep an eye out for those. But one of the ones we picked out last week was the case of the returning ex. Jorge Jesus, the former manager and legend, it has to be said, of Benfica, took his new charges. Ironically, their bitterest rivals, Sporting Club de Portugal, or Sporting Lisbon as you may know them, and spanked them 3-0 in their own backyard. Talk about awkward. Atmosphere was frayed, to say the very least, but Benfica really didn't see what hit them. A real sort of convincing win for Sporting, who potentially sort of whisper it quietly, but people are really starting to think that they may be the real deal, and that was a fact that was further rubber stamped, should say, by them going top of the Liga NOS, with Porto only managing a draw 0-0 at home to Braga in a game that saw very few chances, and Porto really didn't seem at it. So surprisingly, Rio Ave are actually third in the table, Braga fourth, Paços de Ferreira fifth, Benfica all the way down in eighth, which really would be unthinkable at the start of the season. But Portugal is really starting to become quite a hard fought league this season. So keep an eye out for how Sporting Lisbon do, and obviously keep an eye out for Porto as well. Certain Ruben Neves is worth keeping an eye on for Porto. He's a real talent, so have a look out for him. So congrats to Sporting and Jorge Jesus, and I'm sure he'd be delighted to get out of that stadium alive, because it was really hot atmosphere there. 2 other quick ones to catch up on. We had a request from a listener just to keep tabs on the Swiss Superliga. There was a big game this weekend between Basel and Young Boys Bern. Basel came out 1-0 winners. Massive talent, Young Mbolo with the winner. So that sees Basel stay top of the table. Young Boys are now third. So it's worth keeping tabs on that league, another competitive league. And also, speaking of derbies that were a little bit hot, not many hotter in European football than the Istanbul derby, which happened this weekend. 45,000 plus saw Fenerbahce draw 1-1 with Galatasaray. Fener now sitting third, Galatasaray in second. Diego, formerly of Wolfsburg, put Fenerbahce 1 up after sort of cross-come shot from Robin van Persie was palmed out by keeper Muslera from Galatasaray. Diego with a lovely finish, and it was equalised late on header from Ulkan Adin in the 84th minute from a short corner from Wesley Schneider, was played back to him, crossed it in, met with a really good header at the back stick. And I've never had a ground fall so silent as Fenerbahce's did, but it really was silence as the equaliser went in. And honours were even in that game. So there's a couple of fixtures to sort of pick out there. Let's have a little catch up on what's going on in Russia. John, have you got some information for us there?
Yeah, CSKA are currently top on 33 points, Lokomotiv second on 27 points. They do have a game to play still, and Zenit are third on 25 points, which I found a little bit surprising. CSKA unsurprisingly top because they have Musa and Dumbia come back to the Russian league, 11 goals between them so far this season. Angie and Mordovia Saransk are both are joint bottom on 8 points. See, I said that team name perfectly. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. Couple of games from the weekend. Really exciting game. Zenit absolutely hammering Angie 5-1. Wonderful goal from Hawke. Just powered two players off the ball, ran through the middle and just absolutely levered it with that left foot of his. And I don't know what the actual name for it would be. Would it be the Moscow Derby? It was Dinamo against Spartak. Spartak coming from behind twice to win the game 3-2 in stoppage time. So it looked like a really exciting game. So if any of the listeners know if there is a special name for the what I assume would be the Moscow Derby, do tweet us and let us know what that is. But yeah, some decent results in Russia, but CSK looking like they're running away with the league at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting league to keep tabs on. We definitely like to sort of cast our net across the leagues. And for those people that are asking us about things like the Championship and the Scandinavian leagues, don't worry, we haven't forgotten. They will be up in future weeks, so we will cover those. Just one other sort of worldwide thing that we'd like to cover this week, and that is the conclusion to the MLS regular season, or sort of regular league season at least. The playoffs are looming, and yesterday night saw the final games across both the Western and Eastern conferences. Just to keep you up to speed with what's going on, the New York Red Bulls and the Columbus Crew are automatically qualified for the playoffs with home advantage from the Eastern Conference, and Dallas and the Vancouver Whitecaps are through from the Western Conference. As far as the actual playoffs go, DC United will entertain New England, Seattle Sounders will entertain LA Galaxy, Montreal Impact in a Canadian derby with Toronto, and Portland Timbers will face off against Sporting KC. Really exciting sort of final end to or final games for the MLS sort of regular season as far as the conferences go. It's not a league that everyone is particularly fond of, it has to be said, but sort of sitting back last night, it was quite entertaining to watch, and there was absolutely goals galore. I've watched a lot of MLS games that have been a bit dull, but last night it certainly wasn't dull. Just looking across picking out some of the results, you had the Columbus Crew securing their place in the playoffs with a 5-0 win at home to DC United. My beloved Chicago Fire continued to stink up the joint. Unfortunately, they lost 2-1 at home to New York Red Bulls, and a couple of other fixtures. Portland Timbers hit 4 at home to the Colorado Rapids. Danny's Portland Timbers. That was that they're now sort of finding their streak at the right time, which they tend to do, and that 4-1 win will definitely help them. LA Galaxy lost to Sporting KC. That was another 2-1. The Sounders 3-1 at Salt Lake. Whitecaps beat Dynamo 3-0. Dallas 2-1 over San Jose Earthquake. And Montreal Impact beating Toronto 2-1. So it was just goals everywhere. The only place that only saw one goal, Philadelphia Union beating Orlando City. So stay tuned. Obviously, as the playoffs commence, we'll keep you up to date. Basically how it works for those of you that don't follow the MLS is that now the regular season is finished, the top two from both conferences are automatically through with home advantage, and then it will be the best 6 for the other playoff games that will join them, so the best 4 I should say, that will join them now to face off. So we shall keep tabs on the next few games and see how it goes. So that pretty much draws a line under the best of the rest from around the world. So as always, if you've got any questions, or if there's anything you really want us to research, or anything you want to ask our experts, just drop us a tweet or send us a tweet to the podcast account, and we will do our very best to answer those questions for you. So with that done, let's move on to this week's Hipster's Choice. Okay, so this week's Hipster's Choice, we have decided to take a trip to my beloved Liga. We have picked out a player for you to keep tabs on. And this is a gentleman who plays for Lille, and he goes by the name of Sofiane Boufal. Now, probably to most listeners listening into this won't think, well, that's not a very French name, and you'd be absolutely right to think that in normal circumstances. But he is French Moroccan. So he kind of qualifies for both regions. He's actually born in Paris, France. He's 22 years of age, born on the 17th of September 1993. That just boggles the mind because I was born 10 years earlier than that, but keep that to yourselves, people. He weighs approximately 64 kilograms or 141 pounds for those of you in old language. His current number is number 7 for his Lille side, and he's an attacking midfielder. He joined Lille from at the time Ligue 2 side Angers, who as we know are now Ligue 1, making 29 appearances with 5 goals. For Angers B. Between the 2012 and 2014 season, he made 46 appearances for the first team between 12 and 15 season as well. He's a pacey, two-footed kind of winger, happy on either flank, likes to play in behind. He's one of these players that likes to dig out a cross as well as sort of go for a little dribble, so he's kind of an all-round attacking midfielder. He's got himself a couple of goals this season as well, so he always provides a goal threat. His first goal for Angers actually came in the 90th minute. A little bit of a random fact for you. So last minute winner. That was back in September of 2014. He's been recently scouted by English clubs Newcastle and Leicester. Didn't sort of push through with an offer, and he ended up going to Lille. But the way he's performed this season, I don't think it's too long before he may well be on the move to a bigger club. Most recently, he's been linked with Tottenham over the summer of 2015, but again remained at Lille. And this season thus far, 10 games, he scored 4 goals and he's received 5 yellow cards. So he's obviously got a bit of a temper. And a lot of people, this is the standard thing with any player that comes out of Lille who's a bit tricky and two-footed. Is he the next Eden Hazard? I think it's very, very easy to say that right now because Hazard's not in the best of form. But I think he's got a way to go before he reaches those sort of accolades. But he's certainly one to watch, which is why we've selected him for the Hipster's Choice. As far as his international career, just briefly touch on that. He refused the first call up from Hassan Benaish. See, I'm John disease now. And he's the head of the Moroccan Olympic team, so that didn't particularly go down too well. But Badou Zaki, the Moroccan head coach, has travelled to France in the spring of 2015 to try and convince him to play for them. The Atlas Lions is the nickname of the Moroccan side. So it remains to be seen what actually happens. He did decide to represent Morocco in June, but he was ruled out of the game against Libya. And he wasn't included in Morocco's side for the 2017 African Nations Cup qualifiers against St. Thome and Principal. So I've 2 teams, I'll be honest, I'd never heard of until this evening. So the speculation is that he actually declined the call-up. So whether he's looking to hang around to see if he can get in the French side, open to debate, would have to be said. Just very quickly, his strengths, I would say, lightning quick feet, his ability to dribble through tight congestive spaces. If you check out a goal that he scored against, I believe it was Monaco from memory a couple of weeks ago, certainly one to keep an eye on there. That was a good little finish. And he's dangerous in anywhere in the final third. As we mentioned, two-footed, can play on either side, so he pops up in little holes. His weaknesses, does tend to overplay a bit, and he holds on to the ball for quite a long time, so he does sort of tend to get tackled. Let's just get a quick sort of word from our panelists on what they think. Granted, it's probably one in my region, but we've done a bit of scouting, we've done a bit of swatting up. So, John, what did you have to add to the pile as far as Boufal goes?
I was just very impressed with his technical abilities, control, his first touch, vision of the ball. And the one thing that stood out more than anything else was the few times I've seen him play is I don't know what the move is called. I don't know if is it a Marseille spin or something. It's whatever it is. It's where they stand on the ball and do the little spin thing round a player with the ball. I don't know what the hell the trick's called, but he seems to do that in every single game. And I just thought, if you've watched him play a couple of times and you're a defender, why are you not, knowing he's going to do that? And he just manages to just weave around into tiny, tiny little spaces. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how he develops. But like you say, he has got the the typical thing of being one of those tricky players who at the moment holds on to the ball too long. But I think that's more of an age and coaching issue that can be taught out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's at such a young age, like you say, that you don't want to take too much of the flair away. Drew, what have you made of the sort of bits and bobs that you've seen of Boufal, and how good do you think he could be?
I think, as you and I spoke before the pod, I think he, at least for like base value, what you see now, he looks like he has all the ingredients. I would agree that the mental side of his game needs to mature. He's still only 22, and I think we all agree he does sort of maybe do one or two moves extra than required. But I think that's part of the youthful exuberance that you just brought up before, that sometimes young players who are gifted try to almost do too much because they're just enjoying themselves and they get lost in the moment, so to speak. So with maturity, that'll kind of fall by the wayside a bit, hopefully anyway. For me, I think the one thing that stood out for me about him was his ability to start and stop on a dime with full control of the ball. I think that was exquisite. And that's a lot of the things that younger players sometimes often struggle with, to repeatedly do it, and you have a succession maybe 5, 6, 7 times in the span of 15, 20 seconds. He's such good control of the ball in tight spaces. I feel like that's a sort of quality. I think that's what people compare about him with Hazard. Most of you see that from Hazard every week when he plays for Chelsea, at least when he's on form anyway. How good he is with tight ball control, and that's something I think that technical aspect is really trained in players in France and places like Germany and the Netherlands and Belgium, and I think that's come out well in a lot of the younger attacking players, especially wingers these days. Can he make the grade and become a very, very good player? I think he can, but I think he needs to avoid moving away from Lille too soon. He needs to really sort of nurture himself and mature in the right environment. I think Lille is the right environment for that because they had such success with Hazard there before. If he was to jump ship to a Premier League side now, I think it would definitely be too soon. He just has to perfect his craft before maybe making the jump to really asking himself if he can make it at the top level.
Yeah, absolutely. I will just correct myself. The goal I was thinking of was actually against Rennes, not Monaco, and it was on the 18th of September. So it was a 1-1 draw. So for those of you that are good on YouTube or whatnot, have a look up that goal. Good little goal. That you can catch Sofiane Boufal's next game if you want to sort of see how he's getting on, or maybe have a quick look at what sort of a player he is. As I said, look out for the Lille number 7. That's his number, and his side are home to Troyes on Wednesday the 28th, which if you're listening to this on a Tuesday when it's released, it will be tomorrow. So Wednesday the 28th of October, home to Troyes. And if you can't catch him on the Wednesday, the next game is away against Nice. It's a 1 p.m. UK time kickoff on Sunday the 1st of November. So if you do know anything about Sofiane Boufal, or if you've seen him before, or if you're of Moroccan descent, or you watch a lot of Moroccan football, or indeed you're a fan of Liga, give us a tweet, let us know what your thoughts are, and we will share the best of them. So keep tabs, and we'll obviously have another player for you next week from our Hipsters Choice. And if you do watch the player, do just put Hipsters Choice as the hashtag, and we will we'll look through the best of those for next week's show. So that is our Hipsters Choice. Thank you as always to Kelly, our researcher, who's come up with some fantastic stats as always. So thank you to her. Right, so just one more segment before we get to the listeners' questions, and that is a little section that we like to call Team of the Week. So this week's Team of the Week. So if you tuned into our first 2 podcasts, you'll know that what we basically do is pick out, as the title would suggest, our best players that we think we've seen across the leagues this week. And then I'll go to my panelists for just a little bit of information on a couple of players that I pick out of my choice. So without further ado, let's go through the lineup of what we've got available from this week's Team of the Week. So we've decided to lay it out in a formation of a 4-3-3. We don't always have a formation sort of that differs from a 4-4-2, but this week I thought, no, I've got to have 3 strikers, and there's a very good reason for that, which I will explain shortly. So in goal this week, we have decided to go for Keylor Navas, the Real Madrid goalkeeper. Obviously, they won at Celta Vigo. He was absolutely outstanding. Although Real Madrid went out 3-1 winners, he was very much a key part in that, making some excellent saves. Tom will tell you more. Back four, I've gone with Korb, the Borussia Mönchengladbach right back who scored the winner against Schalke, as you'd have heard from John's report earlier on. This is a lad, he's only a youngster, really does look the real deal. I think he's the sort of player that's going to make great strides in the coming years as a potentially for Germany as well. The left back, I've gone with Levan Kurzawa, the Paris Saint-Germain left back, moving there from Monaco in the summer. Scored his first goal for PSG. Overall good performance. Not sure about the celebration. Worth looking that one up. Two centre-halves, I've gone with Kongolo from Feyenoord, which Drew will give us a bit more information on at the moment. He's been pretty much rock solid all season. Looks the part, big physical centre-half. And speaking of which, Nicolas Otamendi is his partner at centre-back. He obviously played his first Manchester derby yesterday. Really does look like he's starting to adjust to Premier League football. Also has a lovely beard and haircut combo. Very much a hipster there, so he had to get the nod. As far as our three-man midfield go, I've gone with Sergi Darder, the Spanish international midfielder for Lyon, scoring his first goal for Lyon this season in their 3-0 win. He's really starting to adjust. He's rave reports when he was at Malaga, and he's certainly, from what we've seen thus far for Lyon, he certainly looks to be improving week on week. So he's made the team this week. He is joined by another Spaniard, and that is Ilarramendi, which is always a tricky one to say. Absolutely outstanding for Real Sociedad. Obviously, David Moyes and Sociedad have been very much underperforming this season. They've been massively under pressure all the time that they've been playing in every game this season, seemingly. And the questions were asked about whether he was worth the money and whether it was worth bringing him back from Real Madrid. Performances like yesterday pretty much suggest that he was. And he is joined in midfield by Diego, mentioned in the Istanbul derby, getting the opening goal. He garnered an 8.6 rating across the board as the best player on the pitch in that Istanbul derby. Really has found a new lease of life since joining Fenerbahce, and just looks a top player again. He was hugely rated when he was playing in Germany, and that's continued since he's moved to Turkey. So he gets the nod as far as the midfield goes. So that completes our midfield three. And as far as the strike force go, there'll be two names that probably won't be a surprise to anybody. So let's start with a name that might surprise a few, and that is Slimani, the Algerian striker who scored in that game that we mentioned previously in the Benfica Sporting game. He's had a really terrific season for Sporting. Really looks like a top player, starting to get recognition across Europe now. So he has made the side. He is joined by Luis Suarez, a hat-trick for the Uruguayan. It's his favourite time of the year, Halloween. Insert your joke here. But he was on top form this week, really stepping up to the plate and proving just why Barcelona paid all that money they did to Liverpool to get him. And completing our lineup is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, which is Danny's favourite. He makes the lineup after his hat-trick secured a win for Dortmund this weekend. So that is our team of the week. I'm just going to come to our panellists quickly to do a brief kind of roundup of what they thought of a couple of the performances. I'm going to start with Drew. Drew, as a Feyenoord man, you'll know a little bit about a certain Mr. Kongolo, one of our centre-backs. Give our listeners a little bit of insight as to what sort of a player he is.
He's for a 21-year-old, he's done an excellent job of really fitting in the mold into that throwback sort of technically gifted defender that the Dutch were so well known for in the 80s and the 90s. He actually plays more left back than center back. He is very, very good in possession. The mental side of his game has already developed actually quite well. He's good with the ball at his feet. He's actually a very good passer as well. So you kind of almost look at him and you could think that, when Daley Blind plays there, people will be reminded of him. But more importantly, they could think of someone like a Frank de Boer, who just has the vision for a left-sided defender that you wouldn't expect from a lot of people. He's very good at getting forward. He's very good at putting a ball into the box. He's excellent tracking back. He has a very, very, very good engine. And it's interesting to see how he moves forward in his development, because the one thing that the Dutch are struggling with right now so much on a national level, not just forming a national team core that that gets on the pitch and complements each other, but they've struggled at the back to find really good quality defenders that can not just do well in the Eredivisie or in one of the best leagues, but they need to make that jump to being able to survive in international tournaments. They have not had that since the last great influx of Dutch players finally hung their boots up. So look out for him as well. I think he's one of those players that, as you expect, good young Dutch players never stay in Holland for long. I would imagine this summer I would peg him for a move away from the club, to be honest. So
cool. Good stuff, yeah. Certainly one to keep an eye on. So you get almost, with Team of the Week, you almost get a bonus Hipster's choice. You get other players to look at. John, I'm going to give you 2 quick ones just to wrap us up on Team of the Week before going back to Drew with another quickie. John, could you just tell us a little bit about Nicolas Otamendi and also one of your favourites, Mr. Corbett, right back? What do you make of those two?
Otamendi's a player who's done really well for his 1 year where he's at Valencia. Obviously at Porto before that, but since coming to Man City, wobbly start, but he's doing much better now. Typical in that South American is that he's comfortable on the ball. A little bit small for a centre back actually. Normally a bit bigger, but quite strong for his size. He's got that really good centre of gravity. A bit like his countryman in Aguero has that same ability. And he did for all the negativity and the dullness in the Manchester derby. He was one of the players who could come out of it with his head held high. Actually had him pegged as man of the match in that game. As for Julian Korb, a real favourite of mine. Hasn't quite broken into the German national team yet. Has represented them at every level from under 15s up to under 21s though. Still only 23. Just really exciting, very steady, solid right back. Explosive when going forward. Had a great game this weekend. Obviously winning the penalty and getting a goal as well. And just he's got a real understanding with. He seems to develop partnerships very quickly with whoever's playing in front of him. It was for a while Patrick Herrmann, but this season he's had Traoré, he's had Thorgan Hazard, he's had different players, and he just seems to gel and understand what to do. Really developing well, and hopefully can break into the German national team soon.
Yeah, good start, a good shout. We'll certainly be looking for his development. A final player I just want to highlight. We kind of covered him earlier on, but Drew, just give us just give us a quick appraisal of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's performance this weekend. Obviously got a hat trick, and how just maybe tell us a bit about how his development has come from being more of a wide forward to now an out and out centre forward for Dortmund.
I think he's become that centre forward out of necessity for the club, but also because they're way more focused now on more counterattack. They can possess when they want to, but Aubameyang's pace, with Royce on one wing and Mkhitaryan or Kagawa on another, really sort of just they can be up the pitch in 2 passes, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. So I think, but didn't he not play centre forward at Saint Etienne as well? So it's not as much, no. But so it's not a new role for him, but it's certainly in a different system where before he was chucked out on the wing, but he was still getting goals. But as a centre forward, again, as I said before, he's for a pacey striker, he actually does have very good hold up play, which allows him to bring Royce into the play. It allows him to bring Mkhitaryan into the play. It allows Kagawa to play off of him as well. So he can create space for others while also creating space for himself. And I think that's why he's having such an easy time just finding goals right now. It helps that everyone at Dortmund's playing well, especially in the attacking third, and helps that Tuchel's kind of revitalized him. But I think now that he's hitting that age where he's just about in his prime, this is what you would probably expect from him for the next 3 years. I think he'll easily get 20 goals domestically, if not fight with Lewandowski for the goal scoring lead in the Bundesliga. So there's not much more you can say. That his all-around game is just exquisite, and you can't say enough about him at the moment.
Yeah, well said, and certainly worth keeping an eye out for. We should say we will post our Team of the Week on our Twitter account, so you can have a look at it in all its glory. We'll post that probably later on tomorrow, so you can have a look at that. And if you've got your own Teams of the Week, or you've got players that you feel that should have made it, drop us a tweet and tell us that we know nothing. I'm sure there'll be many that will do that. So forward orderly queue, boys and girls. Okay, so that's our Team of the Week. Just the one segment to go then, and that's a little segment that we call the Onion Bag. Okay, so the onion bag is your chance as listeners to shoot us some questions, and our chance to either look very, very hipster or very, very stupid in how we answer them. So we'll see how this goes. Now we're conscious of time, so we're gonna try and rattle through these answers fairly quickly. So Drew and John, be on your quickest behaviour. We'll try and get through these as quickly as we can, so we can get them all covered. The first question I'm going to ask, I'm going to give to John, and this comes from Simon Collins, and he wants to know, Remy Gard, potentially the next Aston Villa manager. Do you think he'll succeed, and do you think it's a good appointment?
If they pull it off and get him signed as manager, yeah, I think it's a great appointment. He did very well in France with Lyon, and at a time when they were struggling financially. He's well respected, well liked. I think there's a sort of misconception that he's been out of football because no one wanted to hire him, when actually it's been not that hasn't been the case at all. It's actually that he wanted to take a break from football. He took a sabbatical, a bit like Pep did and Klopp attempted to. So I think the biggest problem that he'll have is the Villa squad itself is so very weak. Defensively they've never replaced Vlaar. I know they brought in Richards and Lescott, but Lescott's the wrong side of 30, and Richards just hasn't played football consistently enough. Delph went, Benteke went. There's some good young players there, but they're very, very young, and they need the right experienced players around them. So that will be his one struggle. But if they can get him, then they need to give him time. And hopefully, if he can keep them up, then give a summer so he can have a proper transfer window, because the last transfer window for Villa was just terrible.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said. We'll keep an eye on that. The appointment hasn't been made as at time of recording, but seems like it's fairly inevitable. So we'll keep you posted for next week. Next question is for you, Drew, and this is from Facile Goose on Twitter, and he wants to know, anyone following Bayern / the Bundesliga, are they as impressed by Sebastian Rode as I am? The comparison he's made is Francis Coquelin's emergence at Arsenal. He says it's a similar impact and profile. What do you make of Rode?
I actually like Rode quite a bit. But for me, I feel like he was already a very good player before he went to Bayern. I think he's a holding player from a deeper area that they can sort of build a midfield core around him. The problem is, as you and I spoke before, is that he might not get that opportunity at Bayern because of the way Pep manages things, his style, the way he has his favorites, the way he is trying to bring Spain to Germany, and Rode does not fit that. He hasn't played often either under Pep. This season he's only made 2 appearances, 1 off the bench. Last season, in 22 appearances, 14 of them came as a substitute. So it's difficult for him to really maybe get that amount of time on the pitch where he can continue to develop as to maybe where he would have gotten it somewhere else. I think talent level wise, he makes the grade for Bayern, but I don't know if he'll get his chance at Bayern. And I know Jake talks about Rode quite a lot, and he says that he could see Rode making it somewhere else, whether it's in Germany or in the Premier League. He has that level. He's gifted enough. But I think being at Bayern actually may hold him back, which is unfortunate because he's actually a very good player.
Yeah, good shout. Next one for you, John, is I'm going to combine 2 questions into one here because I think you can probably cover them both in one go. The first part is from our friend Luka Kolakusic, and he wants to know the 5 clubs within 2 points on top of the Serie A table. Who will keep up the tempo, and who do you think will drop off by Christmas? And combining into that question, I'm going to ask Akib's question, and he wanted to know what you think of Roma's title chances this season.
Oh, hello, Akib, friend of ours, and Bok to Luca as well. Well, Roma have got a real chance. They've got the squad, they've got some depth. They dropped off last season, the season before that. They did the same thing that they suffered in the second half of the season after the winter break. This year looks a bit different. Salah coming in has made a big difference. They brought in Dzeko. They've invested in the team a bit more. There's still a little bit of a problem at right back. Torresidas has played there. Florenzi's played there at times, but as I said before, he's a fantastic player that he is, and he can play right back. But you're not getting the best out of that player and what he can bring to the team. So there's some talk of possibly bringing in someone on loan or a permanent deal in January. That could certainly help them. But what they need to do is take advantage whilst Juventus are still struggling and finding their form. Although Juventus are on the upswing at the moment, Roma can really push. And as for the other teams, I would expect Fiorentina to drop away a little bit. Not through lack of talent, just through lack of depth more than anything else. But it will more than likely, I would think you'd see Roma and Napoli will be the two that push on. Inter, again, got some good players, but the creativity in midfield is lacking a little bit. So I can see them challenging for a Champions League place, but I think over the length of the season, it will probably be between Roma, Napoli, and Juve eventually catching them up.
Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, another one for you then, Drew. This one comes from Wolfsburg, UK. No prizes for guessing who he might follow. He wants to know, who do you see making the top 4 in the Bundesliga, assuming that Bayern Munich and Dortmund are the top 2?
Oh, let's see. I know Danny would agree on this. The Bundesliga is one of those leagues where come the end of the season, the places 3 through 7, maybe even 8, could be separated by 10 points, 12 points total. I honestly, I'm not quite sure. If Wolfsburg can get past losing De Bruyne's creativity, I think they'll be up there. And I know John will appreciate this. I do think Gladbach will make a run of it. I think the form they're in right now is, I don't think it's a shock. If you remember when we were taping the pilot episode, I actually said that Gladbach would rebound, and it did. I think the ability for them is there. I think they have all the ingredients, and the finish last year wasn't a surprise. So I would probably say Wolfsburg and Gladbach. I expect Hertha Berlin to fall off a bit. I don't think Bayer Leverkusen have the goals in them. They don't have that reliable, true leading the line striker to really fire them up top of the table. And I think Schalke, they have too many young pieces to sustain a top 4 run, but I think they'll finish in probably 5th maybe. So I would say Wolfsburg and Gladbach would round out the top 4.
Cool, good stuff. You heard it here first. Write those down, people. If Drew's wrong, there you go. You'll have to take it up with him. Sticking with you, I just want a straightforward yes or no answer to this. I got a feeling I know the answer, but let's give it a go. Pete Gooner just wanted to ask: could Bayern win every league game this season? 10 out of 10 so far.
No.
Good stuff. Okay, John, out of interest, are you yes or no?
Oh God, that's Occam's razor. I'll say no.
Surely, with the laws of physics suggest that one day
I'll say
they'll.
No. It's got to be.
There'll be one game surely where they'll just drop something. So. Good stuff. Okay, just a couple more to go before we leave you guys in peace. So, John, I'll ask you 2 in a row. Keep this one short, and then there's one that I'm sure you can go to town on. Blog Arsenalista. Again, no surprise who he follows. He wants to know: is Alexis Sanchez among the top 5 players in the world?
Oh wow. I mean, right now, then you'd have to say yes, but. I think obviously you have Messi and Ronaldo as the top 2. I don't think there's really any debate about that. But then after that, I think it's a bit fluid underneath, because I think it goes from week to week, because you could have players like David Silva in there one week if he's done an outstanding performance. If Yaya Toure turns up, he's one of those players. Aguero as well. I know that's just free from Manchester City. But then you could say Mesut Ozil, Alexis Sanchez. There's so many in the Premier League alone. You've got Robert Lewandowski's in the form of his life at the moment. Thomas Müller. There's far too many quality players at the moment. The only consistent thing is that they're concentrated at a nucleus of clubs. But I would say, as of right now, that Alexis, I would put him in the top 5 on form right now.
Good stuff. And another one for you. This one comes from our friend of the pod, and indeed part of our techno crew. That makes it sound like she's in a rave. Tech side of the crew, and one of our designers, and that is Kat. She wanted to ask you. We touched on it earlier on. Roma currently flying high. A certain Mr. Mohamed Salah has been a huge part of where they're sitting top of the table. She just wants to know what your thoughts are on Salah, and particularly the situation he's in, given what he's done for Roma this season.
I mean, just as a player, he's great, and I don't think he was ever really given a chance at Chelsea. You saw how good he was for Fiorentina last season. He started this season great for Roma. The really interesting thing is the dispute that Fiorentina have at the moment. It's not clear if they are trying to sue Salah himself or they're trying to sue Roma. That's a little bit cloudy, but essentially the big problem is, and part of the reason why he was booed so heavily, other than just having played for Fiorentina last season, now playing for Roma instead of Fiorentina again, was that in his contract allegedly there was a clause for Fiorentina to extend it for a further 12 months, and then at the end of that they had an option for a permanent deal to buy from Chelsea. Now, Fiorentina are saying that they submitted the paperwork to the league, which they did, for this extension on the loan deal to make it another year. Now, Mo Salah and his agent are saying that within that clause that there was a part of the contract that he had to sign by June 30th of this year. That wasn't signed. Fiorentina are now saying that this part of the paperwork holds no legality in disputing it, and have now lodged a complaint with FIFA. This has now got to the point where FIFA are now having a formal hearing. The problem is they're having a formal hearing about this in December. So, as to what can be actually done about it, if anything, I really don't know, because the big issue is that Salah has already played for Roma and affected games against Fiorentina and where their league position is. So, if it's found that he's playing illegally for Roma, I'm not sure if it's the player who will be at fault, whether the club will be at fault. Is there a possibility of points being docked? You know, it really is opened up a big can of worms. So he's at the centre of a lot of controversy at the moment, and the fact that he scored the opening goal in the game and got sent off just really didn't help his week and him being in all the headlines in Italy.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. That is certainly one to keep an eye on. Who'd have thought corruption in Italy or scandal in Italy? Who'd have thought? Okay, 2 questions left. Drew, I'm going to come to you with this one, which is going to segue into all of us, but I'll start with you. Comes from Mohammed, and he wants to know. He says, "Watch out for Mark Stendera of Eintracht Frankfurt. Really good player for his age." So he wants you just to give a bit of background on him, and also, who is all of the panel's upcoming young talent or outstanding in Europe? Now, that question could go on for hours, so we're probably going to do that in our first Hipsters Roundtable, which we'll be doing live, so stay tuned for updates when that's going to happen. It won't be long, so we'll save that for another day, but what we are going to do is give you one young player to look out for in our respective leagues. So, Drew, what do you make of Marcus Stendera, or Mark Stendera, I should say?
I actually... as he said, for his age, he's actually pretty adept at the positions he plays. He can play the center midfield role. He can also play deeper. I won't say DM, for God's sakes. Just he plays that deeper holding role. He can also play on the left. Most of his appearances this season have come from center midfield, but it's actually his best performance came from that deeper holding role, where he actually scored both his goals that he has this season. He featured for Germany under-20s at the World Championships. He's a stalwart at Eintracht Frankfurt at only age 19. He's going to be one of those players where in that sort of Johannes Geis mold, where Geis started at Mainz and went to a bigger club, Stendera will eventually do the same. It's tough to see where, but a player of his age and his ability to pick a pass while also being able to contribute defensively, but he also has that sort of shot from distance that like a Torsten Frings kind of had. Yeah, he's a complete package for a holding player. So I think that Germany are not short in supply of those, but it's good that they keep sort of the pipeline churning year on year. Another one comes up, like Julian Weigl started so well at Dortmund, and you had guys last year, and now you have Stendera playing well this year. So I think big things to come from him for sure over the next, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years, and maybe he'll make a jump move to a bigger German club down the road for sure.
Good stuff. And give us the name of one young player in the Bundesliga that you really like.
Felix Passlack.
Good stuff. And who does he play for?
Well, here's the thing. He's only 17. He's a new system at Dortmund. But if you go to the German oracle that is Rafa Honigstein, he is already being tipped for big and bright things for the full national team. And he's only 17. He can play both wing-back positions, both wing positions, and in the number 10. He's currently doing very, very well for the German under-17s right now in the under-17 World Cup. 2 goals, 1 assist, and 3 appearances so far. And with Tuchel now at Dortmund, and he's not afraid to rely on youth and sort of Dortmund always having unreliable, inconsistent wing backs. I think Pasek will get his chance probably as close as next year when he's only 18. So look out for him. It's not right now this season, but look out for him next season.
Good stuff. There's one for your hipster trend. Write that one down and keep an eye out for him. John, who's the young player that stands out in Serie A that you think's worth keeping an eye on?
Oh, I don't suppose I can pick Florenzi. He's too old, isn't he? So I'll have to pick Ricardo Kirchner from Lazio. He's part of that attacking triumvirate. He's sort of in and out of the team at the moment because he does generally play right wing, which is Antonio Candreva's position, but he's flipping between the right, left, and sometimes in the centre as well when they're sort of playing a false nine system occasionally. He came in from Ajax in the summer for €4 million, and to be honest, so far he looks like an absolute bargain. Much like Felipe Anderson, very tricky winger, pacey. Good feet, good passing, good on the ball, good dribbling. Just really exciting player to watch. Just any time you get a chance to watch Lazio, just if you're not too sure, just check out the lineup, and if you see Kirchner or Felipe Anderson's name in the starting lineup, definitely watch him. But Kirchner really is one to look out for. He'll be making headlines, and I'm sure he'll be in the Dutch national team soon enough.
Yeah, probably sooner than we might expect after their current form, the Dutch.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to chuck my one in as well, I'll go for a lad at PSG, Jean-Kevin Augustin. He's only 18 years of age. He's a central attacker, but can play a game much like John Kirchner there. He can play either side, right or left wing, through the centre. He got rave reviews in pre-season, particularly on their American, or I should say sort of World Continental Cup, whatever it was called, that pre-season tournament. Played a lot of games. Is thought of very highly by Zlatan Ibrahimovic, which if that isn't a mark of a talent, I don't know what is. He, as I say, he's only a young lad. He's born in Paris. He's made the squads a couple of times this season for PSG. He's made 3 appearances. Is yet to score, but really this season is all about sort of getting the experience and getting as many minutes under his belt as he can. Just sort of making his way in the game. He's made 13 substitute appearances over the course of his PSG career, but again, most of those have been for the youth team. So he's worth keeping an eye on. For the first team, he's only played the total of 91 minutes in his appearances. So not there yet, but bags of pace, really exciting player. I think he could really be one of those players to keep an eye on. So keep your ear to the ground on that one. Our final question for today's podcast comes from Ellis Mell, and he wants to know, and I'm just going to get one word answer from all of you on this one, both of you I should say. Who is your current favourite player from your respective leagues? Just very briefly, why? I got a feeling I might know who this one might be, but John, let's start with you.
Florenzi.
And briefly, what is it you like about him?
Just amazingly versatile player, and just everything that's exciting about the sort of upcoming Italian football and the young players in Serie.
Good stuff. Nice and brief, like it. Drew, who's yours?
I should probably, right now at the moment, probably Douglas Costa. Just how well he's come into making a huge leap from the Ukrainian league to the Bundesliga and taking his claim on the Bayern side, and now he leads the league in assists at the moment. He's been instrumental for the club, which is not hard to do considering who he plays for. But when you see how he played against Arsenal and how he just completely outdid Hector Bellerin in the first half, you can just see how much talent is there. I just think he's a brilliant player at the moment.
Good stuff. And mine is, as much as I love Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and I really do, I've got a massive man crush on Blaise Matuidi. Just love him. Pace, power, decent on the ball, good character. He's a leader. He's an engine. He's a force. He's just everything I'd want to build a team round. Just a fantastic little player. And my personal opinion is he would, in my opinion, would walk into any side in the world right now. He's that good. I know there's been question marks about whether he's good enough on the ball, but trust me, for every sort of mistake he makes, he'll do 10 or 12 things that aren't mistakes that are fantastic. So, he's a real just powerhouse. I love him. So that's mine. Just before we wrap today's podcast with some hipster handshakes, Drew, can you just give us a very quick plug? You're following the Under-17s World Cup. We've had a lot of listener questions asking us about this. Obviously, your Twitter handle will be in this podcast description and at the end of the show, so people can tweet you questions. But just in a sort of 30 seconds, just give us a summary of what's been going on.
Okay. Well, I don't know how I can remember the not surprisingly enough, England did not make it out of the group. Argentina, shockingly enough, lost all 3 of their group stage matches. So that's actually quite a bit of a surprise. There's nothing other than that really would stand out. But at the moment right now, if I can look at it real quick, top goal scorer right now is Victor Osimhen, who plays for Nigeria, 4 goals and 1 assist in 3 appearances. Johannes Eggestein, the young Werder Bremen striker, also with 4 goals. Actually, France, which you'll appreciate, Kris, have the most goals scored in the tournament thus far, and they remain to be one of the favorites. After that, nothing else really shocking at the moment. But it's been interesting to see how well Nigeria have performed, and they always have such a good history at youth tournaments. So it'll be interesting to see if they can sort of stamp themselves and reacquire themselves on the national front moving forward in a couple of years. And credit to Mali, actually, who I do believe may have won their group. Let me check real fast. They did. A group containing actually Belgium, who have a wealth of youth talent now. Mali actually won their group, so congrats to Mali. There you go.
Good stuff. And as I said, I'm sure you'll be more than happy to answer any questions people might have. So just drop you a tweet or drop us a tweet at the podcast account. We'll forward them to Drew. And as that tournament progresses, we will keep you in touch with how it goes sort of in the latter stages. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for the questions. All fantastic this week. Really good questions. We really appreciate them. We had so many this week. We just felt we couldn't leave anyone's out. So we can't promise that the more popular we get, we can't promise we'll get to all the questions, but we will do our very best. So thank you as always for those. Okay, that's pretty much it from us. We will just run through very quickly some more hipster handshakes. For those of you listening for the first time, a hipster handshake is basically where we give you, our listeners, a nod when you tweet us at the FH podcast with your relevant hipster club. So if you follow a team, whether it's Arsenal, Aldershot, or Accrington Stanley or Almere, it doesn't matter. You tweet us with the team that you follow and we will give you a shout. So running through these very quickly, at PG_Nez on Twitter, he follows Paris FC and has done all the way through the lower divisions. Joe Clark, who's at Spaced Muffin, he follows Bate Borisov. It's a real hipster choice there. Ellis Mel, humorous that he is, he follows the Renford Rejects. Anyone living in the UK will remember what that's all about. Friend of the pod, Neil, who's at Chimp Laguna, he follows River Plate in Argentina. At Guna Talk TV, follows Cork City of the Irish League. Dynamo Dresden is the team of choice for Abhishek Alul. I hope that's how you pronounce Abhishek. Sorry if it's not. He's at Samshir_ASL. Rob, he follows, or inadvertently he says, his father-in-law follows Woking FC. So he follows those. Luca, he follows Christ. He's done this deliberately. I know he has. Sibalia Vinkuci. I hope that's how you pronounce it. I presume they're Croatian. I can only assume. So that's what I'll have to look up. Kamo Guna. Or Kamo Gunner, I should say. He's at Kamo_78 Gunner. Fortuna Dusseldorf. I said they're missing some luck and seeking form in the second Bundesliga, so could do with a shout. So there you go. That's that done. Jack Jones, he's been greedy. He's at Jack M. Jones. Mainly Deportivo, closely followed by Roma. You've broken the rules there, Jack. You've gone with 2. That's outrageous. Pete the Gooner, who sent us a question also, he says Dortmund, if we're not playing him in the Champions League, because they've got great fans. He's at the PA Gooner. He's obviously an Arsenal fan. And 2 more. Marcus Franson. He's at Marcus Franson. Well, that's Franson with 2 S's. Former club of Marcus Ulbeck, Johan Almanda and Alfonso Alves. Sweden's current national team coach also used to manage them. Can anyone guess who that is?
Yes, it's Orgrit IS.
And they are in real language?
Orgrit IS. There you go.
Absolutely. Gothenburg, absolutely. So there's a Gothenburg fan, so there's some Swedish. And they are currently... Excuse me, Marcus says they played their first ever football match in Sweden, currently in the Swedish Division 3. So they're from Gothenburg, I should say. They're not obviously Gothenburg. I'm glad you pronounced it, though, by the way, Drew, because I was never, ever going to guess.
I probably butchered it. I don't really, that's not my trick. I don't speak Swedish.
Did far better than I would, trust me.
I tried.
And just to show our reach, we've also had one from Adil Shakaya, and he's at Guna Adil. This is our final hipster handshake of the week from the Indian Super League, Mumbai City FC, who is the club that Nicholas Anelka is the player manager of. So we're spreading wide and far with our hipster handshakes.
Can I just give a hipster handshake out, Chris, quickly before we finish?
You certainly can, yeah.
Mine is, I don't think he's got a Twitter handle, but mine is for Carlo Ancelotti, who is to star in the new Star Trek movie. As a scientist, he will be raising his eyebrow and dissecting an alien, which will just be amazing.
One of the most amazing stories of the week, I think it's fair to say. And I will just add one more on. I'm going to give him one because he was actually a hipster handshake last week, and he's at Nova Rock, and he's a follower of the Portland Timbers. He sent me a fantastic picture last night that I retweeted for the pod account, which was him at the stadium as the Timbers went 3-1 up in their MLS game. So it's a really fantastic picture. So check that out on our Twitter timeline. So I'm going to give Nova Rock a second hipster handshake. So he's got two. So there you go. So if you want a hipster handshake from ourselves, just tweet us at the FH Podcast. Let us know what hipster team you follow. And in wrapping up the show, I just want to say we are in the process of building our website. It is live, so you can actually visit it. It is an online presence. We're working on things as the days go by. Our team of Kat and Vara are doing a fantastic job with the designing and putting things in place. You can go to www.thefootballhipsterspodcast.co.uk, have a look at what's going on there. We've set up a Hall of Fame. We're going to put the team of the week on there. Our hipster handshakes. What we're going to do is list every single person that ever tweets the podcast with a hipster handshake, so you will be on our website forevermore. So that's good. And you can also find out a bit about ourselves, what teams we follow, how we came to follow them. And of course, you can listen to this podcast. Furthermore, we are going to appeal for you. If you're interested in writing some articles for us and you want to blog for us, just drop us a tweet or a DM. If we follow you, we'll follow you back. Send us some information. If you want to blog on anything, we don't mind, as long as it's European football or indeed world football, as long as it's football, basically, and you've got the ability to write. We've got some blog editors, so we'll put together, if your English is not that great and you're a little bit worried, don't worry. Honestly, we're happy to put up any articles as long as they're passionate and they're interesting. So send us your blogs and we'll try and get them published. So that wraps us up for this week. It's been good. We've had fun. I want to extend my thanks both to Drew and to John for joining me this evening.
Pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me.
And as I say, if you've got anything you want to ask us, just send us a tweet. If you listen to the end credits of this show, our Twitter handles will be in there, as will obviously the Twitter handle for the podcast. And all that remains to be said is, as always, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. And we will see you same time next week for the Football Hipsters podcast. Thanks for downloading and choosing the Football Hipsters podcast. Remember, you can follow us at the FH Podcast on Twitter or our website www.footballhipsterspodcast.co.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter individually at AFCFreddy8 for me, Kris, or for Danny it's at @the_GFP. For John it's at JWelsh84. For Tom it's at TCanton94. For Drew, it's at AFCBVB1410. For Jake, it's at JakeArsenal1. For our producer Gaz, it's at GazmanJones. And for our researcher Kelly, it's at Kelly_Mayor. We'll speak to you